They say rejection makes you stronger. But that's a lie. Rejection for most men doesn't make you stronger. It makes you smaller, quieter, hesitant. It lodges itself in your spine like a splinter and shapes how you walk into every room after it. And the worst part? You don't even know it's still there. You tell yourself you've moved on, that she didn't matter, that you've leveled up. But something deep inside you is still asking why. Why didn't she want you? Why did she pull away? Why did she say you were amazing and then disappear? The truth is, rejection doesn't hurt because you lost her. It hurts because she didn't see the man you thought you were becoming. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to turn that pain into a weapon and how to make the next woman feel what the last one never did. Rejection is a mirror. It shows you the version of yourself that women don't want. And for most guys, that version is the polite, predictable, approval-seeking one. The nice guy who's terrified of being misunderstood, who filters every word through a subconscious need to be accepted. But here's the twist most men never realize. The more you try to avoid rejection, the more invisible you become. Because in that attempt to be everything she might like, you erase the very things that make you real. Desire doesn't respond to safety. It doesn't thrive on comfort. It needs friction, boldness, polarity. So when you approach a woman trying not to scare her off, when every sentence you speak is dipped in emotional hand sanitizer, she doesn't feel drawn in, she feels nothing. You've removed all tension from the space. And without tension, there is no attraction. There is no edge. And she's gone before she ever really saw you. You think she rejected you because you weren't attractive enough. You think it was your height, your income, your looks. But what if I told you she rejected you because there was no story unfolding in her nervous system when she met you? No tension to resolve, no threat of the unknown, no spark that made her pulse flicker and her mind go quiet for half a second. You weren't too much. You were too easy to understand, too easy to label, too easy to forget. A man becomes desirable the moment he stops negotiating for desire. You've seen this. The guy who speaks slowly, deliberately, the man who holds eye contact half a second longer than most would dare, the one who lets silence stretch instead of scrambling to fill it. He's not loud, he's not begging, but he radiates something. What is it? Certainty. Not certainty that she will like him. Certainty in who he is, with or without her. This is where rejection becomes your greatest ally. Because rejection, when faced without collapse, carves something into you that approval never can. Rejection, when felt fully and not escaped from, burns away the illusion that your worth depends on her reaction. It forces you to sit in the pain, to stop posturing, to stop performing, to become still. And in that stillness, you realize something radical. You were never trying to connect with her. You were trying to be chosen. You were trying to be picked, as if your value had to be verified by someone prettier than you, more socially fluid than you, someone who could reflect your worth back to you like a mirror. That's why it crushed you when she didn't. You weren't just losing her, you were losing the identity she was supposed to validate. But the moment you let that version of you die, the one who dances for scraps of attention, is the moment you become dangerous. Not dangerous in a manipulative, game-playing way. Dangerous in the sense that you no longer need her yes to stand tall. And paradoxically, that's when desire begins to flow toward you. Because women feel it. They sense when a man is rooted in himself. When he walks into a room and carries the subtle tension of, "I'm not here to prove anything to you." That's the moment she tilts her head. That's when she starts paying attention. Not because you asked her to, but because your presence asked something of her. Every time you were rejected, you were being handed a choice, shrink or sharpen. Most men shrink. They spiral. They question every word they said, every look, every message. They lose themselves in imaginary simulations of what they could have done differently. And none of that brings her back. Worse, it bleeds into future interactions. They show up to new women with ghosts in their eyes and fear in their throat. But some men, very few, take rejection and let it remake them. They don't rush to replace her. They don't numb the pain with meaningless sex. They sit with the sting. They feel the edges of who they were, and they ask the one question that changes everything. What part of me was never real to begin with? And in that question, they begin to strip away every fake layer they wore to be liked. They throw away the smile that was too eager, the compliment that was too desperate, the opinion they softened to be agreeable. And what's left is not a tactic. It's a man who isn't allergic to rejection because he no longer fears being seen. She doesn't desire a man who always agrees. She desires a man who challenges her reality, not through confrontation, but by simply being immovable in his own. When you become that kind of man, rejection no longer feels like a wound. It feels like filtration. It's not that she didn't want you, it's that she couldn't meet you. And deep down, you know that. You know the difference between being unwanted and being unmatched. But you've spent years building a version of yourself that's built to impress. Maybe you call it being polite. Maybe you call it good social skills. But beneath all that charm is a deep unwillingness to be disliked. That's the trap. Because when you're not willing to be disliked, you're not willing to be seen. And if you're not willing to be seen, you'll never be desired. Desire doesn't come from being agreeable. It comes from friction, from emotional gravity, from the audacity to carry your truth into the world without asking for applause. When she senses that you don't flinch at her silence, that you don't collapse under the weight of her disinterest, something shifts. She begins to wonder what you know that other men don't. Why aren't you performing? Why aren't you rushing to fill the void? Why does your stillness make her nervous in all the right ways? Because stillness is power, and power draws curiosity. The average guy thinks attraction is built through effort, compliments, conversations, carefully timed messages. But that's not what creates the spark. What creates the spark is when she feels something she can't explain, an unspoken pull, a tension that makes her unsure of herself. That's what women crave but will never admit. The thrill of wondering if you like her back. The mental puzzle of figuring out if you're slightly out of her reach. That's what stirs emotion. That's what makes you linger in Herman. And yet most men ruin this tension the moment they feel it. They confess too soon. They chase too fast. They lay everything on the table before she's even picked up her fork. It's not that they're wrong for being interested. It's that they're terrified of being misunderstood. So they over-explain, overshare, over-pursue. And in doing so, they take a flame and dump a gallon of neediness on it. But when you stop fearing rejection, you no longer need to hurry. You don't chase her with desperation in your eyes. You look at her and let her wonder what's behind your silence. You lean back and let her feel the weight of your presence. You become a mystery, not because you're withholding, but because you're whole, and wholeness is magnetic. The man who's immune to rejection is not numb. He feels it. He bleeds, but he doesn't beg, because he understands that rejection is not a verdict. It's feedback. Feedback on his presence, his posture, his projection. He uses it not to change himself into what she wants, but to refine himself into something even more honest. He doesn't want every woman to say yes. He only wants the ones who recognize what he truly is. And those women, they are rare, but when they meet him, they feel it immediately. He doesn't ask for their attention. He commands it without a word. Because when you walk through the fire of rejection without bitterness, when you let go of needing to be liked, when you stop negotiating for validation, you don't become a better flirt. You become a man women desire, even when they don't know why. There's a moment every man faces after rejection that most ignore. A subtle flicker of thought that whispers, what if I was never enough to begin with? And if you don't catch that thought, if you don't look it in the eyes and confront it, it starts to rot, quietly, in the background, affecting how you speak to women, how you show up in your work, how you move through the world. You become careful, not intentional. Careful. You overthink your words. You hesitate before taking up space, and you call it being respectful. But the truth is, you're still bleeding, still trying to make sure the next woman doesn't reject you the way the last one did. That's not strength. That's survival. You don't heal from rejection by pretending you don't care. You heal by getting to a place where her absence no longer defines your worth, where her no doesn't touch the roots of who you are. That only happens when you realize this one truth. She didn't reject you. She rejected the version of you that you let her see. And maybe that version wasn't real. Maybe it was filtered. Maybe it was apologetic. Maybe it was desperate. But that version wasn't you. Not fully. Not the fire in your gut. Not the clarity in your mind. Not the man you're capable of becoming when you stop trying to earn someone's affection. What if rejection is just the universe's way of slapping you awake? What if her walking away is the signal that you've been walking too far from yourself? You think she'll come back if you prove something. If you show her you've changed. If you make more money, hit the gym harder, post the right things. But let me give it to you straight. She doesn't come back because you glow up. She comes back when your presence feels like something she never had access to, even when she was right next to you. Women don't come back to the guy who apologizes for who he is. They come back to the guy who finally stops apologizing. The guy who no longer softens his opinions to avoid friction. The guy who says what he believes and lets the chips fall where they may. The guy who walks away first when the energy feels off. Not out of ego, but out of respect for himself. That's the shift. And it doesn't just affect how women see you, it affects how you see yourself. Because now you're not operating from lack. You're not scanning every room for approval. You're not fishing for signs that someone desires you. You walk in as if you belong. Not because someone told you do, but because you've finally decided to stop waiting for permission. This is what turns rejection into desire. Detachment from outcome, combined with total presence. You are here, you are open, you are clear, but you are not hoping. You are not bending. You are not shaping yourself to be more digestible. That's the energy that hooks her because it makes her feel something real. And when a woman feels something real, she can't ignore it. Even if she walks away, she remembers. She remembers the moment your eyes didn't flinch. She remembers the silence you didn't rush to fill. She remembers the way you made her feel like she had to earn you. And even if she never says it out loud, a part of her will always wonder why she felt safer with the men who chased her, but more alive with the man who didn't. That's your power. Not in getting every yes, but in becoming the kind of man whose no is just as powerful. You've probably heard the phrase, she'll come back when you've moved on. But that's only half true. She might come back, but you won't care. Because by the time you become the man rejection was pointing you toward, you realize she was never the prize. The version of you that chased her was weak, needy, half-formed. He thought love was something he had to earn. But the man you are now, he doesn't chase. He invites. He doesn't prove. He chooses. And that subtle shift in energy flips the entire game. When she senses that you're no longer haunted by her absence, that her silence doesn't live in your chest anymore, that you've become more of yourself, not less. She feels it in her body, in her nervous system. She feels the gravity of a man who's rooted in his own orbit, and something deep in her starts to panic. Because now the thing she rejected isn't waiting at the door, it's walking down a different street, not even glancing back. This is where the real reversal happens. She begins to question herself. She starts wondering what she missed, what changed, what other women might be seeing now that she didn't. She replays your conversations, not because of what you said, but because of how you've stopped needing to say anything at all. But the beauty is, you're not doing it for her. You're not becoming this man as a tactic. You're becoming him because rejection forced you to stop lying to yourself. You've played the good guy role for too long. You've tried to be understanding, agreeable, sweet. And what did it get you? Resentment, frustration, quiet rage you didn't know where to put. Not because women are wrong for wanting more, but because you never let them meet the real you. You gave them a script version, the version you thought was safe, the version you hoped would be enough. But safety is not seductive, and politeness is not presence. What she's actually craving, what every real woman is craving, is a man who makes her feel something she can't intellectualize. Someone who activates the part of her that doesn't run on logic. And you can't do that while apologizing and for taking up space. So here's the truth most guys don't want to hear. If she rejected you, it means you never made her feel what she needed to feel. That's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Because until you learn to embody that emotional voltage, Until you stop playing it safe and start standing inside your own fire, you'll keep chasing women who are already gone and never become the man who pulls them in without a word. This isn't about pickup lines. It's not about flirting techniques. It's about energy, emotional gravity. The pull a man has when he doesn't chase approval and doesn't fear being misunderstood. That's what creates real desire. Not clever banter, not buying drinks, just being. And being is terrifying for most men because it means stripping off the armor, dropping the act. It means accepting that not every woman will want you and being utterly unfazed by that truth. So let her walk. Let her say no. Let her ignore your message. Leave your story on read. Flirt with someone louder or smoother. Let her. You don't need to chase her back. You need to face yourself. You need to burn the version of you that was shaped around what women might approve of. And you need to build the version that makes approval irrelevant. When you do that, when you carry yourself with full presence and no attachment, you don't just avoid rejection. You make her regret it. You're not here to be her maybe. You're not built for lukewarm interest or polite affection. You are meant to be unforgettable, or nothing at all. And that means learning to live in the space most men are terrified of. The space where she might say no, walk away, laugh, ghost you, or just not care. That space is the gate. That space is the forge. That's where real masculine energy is either born or buried. You want to turn rejection into desire? Then stop asking for it to be anything other than what it is. Own the silence. Own the dismissal. Own the sting of being unwanted. Not because you enjoy it, but because you're strong enough to absorb it without letting it redefine you. That's power, not bravado, not posturing, stillness. A man who stays rooted even when the storm walks out on him. And the irony, the part most guys never realize, is that this is exactly what women crave. Not a man who always wins, but a man who doesn't flinch when he loses. Not a man who never gets rejected, but a man who never loses his center when it happens. That's what makes you unforgettable. Not perfection. Presence, because presence isn't loud. It isn't showy. It doesn't try to fix the silence. It becomes the silence. And in that, it becomes the most mysterious, magnetic force in the room. That's when she leans in. That's when her breath catches. That's when her instincts whisper, wait, who is this? You want her to desire you? Here's the truth no one told you. She doesn't fall for the guy who tries to be chosen. She falls for the one who already chose himself. Most men are still waiting to be told they're good enough, waiting to be given a signal, waiting for the right moment. And in all that waiting, they disappear. Their edge dulls, their instincts freeze. They trade fire for approval and wonder why she's not looking back. But you, if you're ready, you don't wait anymore. You show up, you speak what's true, you risk being misunderstood, disliked, even rejected, because you'd rather be seen as you are than loved for who you're not. That's the shift, because when you carry yourself like a man who doesn't need to be wanted, she feels it. She doesn't know why you're different, only that you are, that you're not waiting for her to tell you you're valuable, that you walked into her world not with a performance, but with presence. And that presence lingers, long after you leave, long after she walks away, long after she pretends not to care. Because women forget the guys who beg for their attention, but they never forget the man who didn't flinch when they withdrew it. So let's end this right here, right now. Stop asking what she wants. Start asking who you are without her interest. Stop begging to be seen. Start becoming impossible to ignore. Rejection only stings when you forget what it gave you. The chance to stop lying, to stop chasing, to stop being a version of yourself that you don't even respect. You don't get her back by proving your worth. You get her back by making her realize she never even met the real you. If this hits something real in you, drop a thought below, a regret, a wake up, or just a line you needed to hear. And if you're ready to stop playing the old game, follow this channel. Share it with the brother who's still chasing ghosts. This is the real rulebook. The real rulebook isn't something you read, it's something you become.